Hello guys, so welcome to my channel. In this video I'd like to share with you a practical exam which you can use to practice for the RHCSA exam. So this practice exam will have a bunch of questions, and for each question I will go to a different step to answer that question by configuring a VME which is actually booting. So I'll show the list of questions. So here is the exam. So there are 17 questions, no, 60 questions. So there is a requirement for this practice environment. So you should have firstly the VM which have 2 GB of RAMs, 2 GB of disk space using for default partition, and one additional disk of 20 GB which we will use for partitioning for to practice for the exam. And the last bullet point, you can forget that I won't use a graphical user interface. I will use a VM with CLI environment. So as you can see on my screen, the VM is already started. We'll go with the first question. So the first question is to create a user student with the password and a user root with a password root. So actually the user root is already existing. The only thing which is missing is the student user. So I will go on the VM. I will log in with the root. So when I was installing this, I'll set up the root password as root. So I'm connected. I will start by creating a user student. Here I'm on my terminal. So what I usually do, instead of using this interface of VirtualBox, what I like to do is to have a host only adapter on this VM, so that will allow me to be able to SSH to the VM right from my host computer. So actually I will create that user student, which will allow me also to be able to SSH to the server, as by default the root user is not allowed to perform SSH, but that can be allowed. That won't be part of this practice exam. So I will create the user student, so user add student, and I will also add it to the group will, because I would like to be able to move from the student user to the root user. So I will add, and also I will set the password. So I'm using echo to just to be able to show you the password which I'm currently typing. So and I'll pass wd std in student. So this one, so the password pass wd command will take the value which is provided from the command which is on the left side of the pipe. So as you can see, the password is already set, and as that is set, I can now go on my host computer and open a shell. So I'll use commander in this case, and I'll minimize this window so I can have both display on my screen. So I'll reduce the size of this one. We can see all questions, so I'll increase a little bit. Oh, that will be perfect. So here what I will do, I will try to SSH on that server. So to be able to SSH, I must first check if there is a host only adapter on this VM. So I'll go settings and go network. So actually the second adapter is not attached, but this one, the first one, will be used to be able to have internet access, as I will install packages or on further questions. So I will start by shutting down this VM. So I'll go and click there and power off, shut it down, and I'll go here and go on settings and go on network, go on adapter 2, enable that, and I'll choose the type of this. It will be host only, and I'll click on OK. Now I can power on this VM. So I minimize that and it's starting. So wait just for it to complete. So once after it started, what I will do, I will log on that with the root user and check the IP address of that host only adapter. So wait for it. So now I can now log in with root and I'll do IP address show and I'll do pipe. I'll just show. As you can see, the host only adapter is this one, which is 192 168 56 110. So I'll go here and do ssh dash student dash l student 192.168.56.110. Yes, and I'll pass the password. So I'm connected. I'll go and minimize this one. So the first question is performed, and the second question is to configure your system to automatically mount an ISO file, the ISO of the installation disk on the directory root. Configure your system to remove the loop ISO as you to use to remove this loop mounted ISO of as the only repository. So I'll go and check if I have an ISO file. I'll use lsbl key command, which show block device. Actually, there is no the ISO file, so I'll go and mount that, attach that to my VM. On settings, storage, here I will choose the RHEL9.2 ISO file and click on OK. Minimize this one, and now I'll go and use again lsbl key. As you can see now, we have this SRC block device, which has now 8.9 GB. So instead of having to mount that ISO file every time I want to use it, I will just create a copy of that ISO file. So I'll use the command dd if for input file, which will be dev sr0, and the output file will be in the root folder rhel9.2.iso, and the size of each block, it will be 1 megabyte for it to be faster instead of taking 1 kilobyte. Actually, I'm student user, so I will create that as the root user sudo, and I will enter the password. So we'll wait for it to complete. So the copy of that ISO file is completed, so I'll use lsbl I'll use ls-hell. Actually, I'm connected as user, so I'll go in the user. I'll log in as a sudo user, as a root user with sudo su. Now I'm root user. I can now use ls-hell. So as you can see, we have this ISO file. Now I will mount that on the repo directory. So if I use -l dash repo, that that directory is not existing. I'll create that repo and I will mount that. So for the exam, one important thing of related to the exam is to have every configuration be persistent. That means when they reboot your server, all the configuration or all things which you have already configured will be available, so it will work. So what I will do, I will mount that using the fs tab file. So I'll go and set that to, I want to mount the root rel ISO file in the folder repo, and the type of that block device is ISO 96660, and after that I'll use default, and after that I'll add 00. So this is the setting which you want to add in the etc fs tab. Actually, you can see I'm using two double chevron instead of one, because if I use only one, it will replace the entire content of the fs tab, and that is not what I want. So I'll press enter, and if I use cat etc fs tab, you can see the line is at the end. And now if I check that file, we find mnt-verify. Actually there is one here, but we can ignore that, and I will use mount -a to mount everything. So we can see mount dash repo warning, source write protected, mount ready only. So if I use df -h, you can see the repo folder have something mounted on it. So now I'll create a configuration file for the repository. So it'll be cat etc yum.repo I will start with the base os.repo, and for that content will be base os, name will be rel9.2 repository base os repository files, and the second one is base url equal to file colon dash dash dash, so 3 slash instead of dash, and I'll use repo slash base os. And the second one is enabled, which will be equal to n to enable that repository, and the last one will be gpg check equal to 0 to not check all packages. So I'll use that and press Ctrl D. And another one will be the upstream repository files. Upstream, I'll do the same. Base upstream, name will be rel9.2 upstream repository files, and base url will be equal to file colon dash triple slash repo upstream, and enabled equal 1 gpg check equal to 0, and Ctrl D again to validate that. And now I can use cat etc yum.repo base os. So content is there. I'll do the same for the upstream. So the content is there. Now I can check if I have those repository available. So dnf repo list. As you can see, we have those repository, and I can now to confirm that it's working, I can try to search for a package. So I use DNF search HTTPD. You can search for any packages. In my case, I search for HTTPD. So seems like everything is passing, and now you can see we have some result. That means we have properly configured the repository on the for the second question. So for the third question, assume that you don't know the root password. Reset the root password to be able to sign in. Set the root password to password. So for that, we must firstly restart the server. So I will set systemctl isolate power restart, so, or reboot. Okay, now if I go on VirtualBox, you can see the server restarting. So here I should be very fast because the grep menu doesn't take long time. So I must start pressing up arrow key or any key to be able to stop the grab menu. So I'll wait for it. So actually taking long, I'll just shut down there. So power off and restart it. So firstly I will unattach the ISO file because it will boot on that. So I'll go here and remove it. Okay, and now I can start it. Start. Okay, it's starting. I should press some key. So actually it passed. I will have to restart that again. I reset and start pressing, and now we have the grab menu. So I will select this first one and press on the E key and go at the end of this line. To go to the end, instead of moving with arrow key, I can press Ctrl E, which will bring me directly at the end, and enter init / bin bash, which will interrupt the boot process and give me the shell to be able to tap some commands. So I press Ctrl X to boot. So wait for that. So for this process, I want me to log in with SSH. That's why I'm using this console of VirtualBox. So actually I'm already connected, and we press I will type mount. So as you can see at the end, we have this line. The root path is mounted as read only. So to be able to change the password, I must mount that in read write. So I'll go and mount dash option remount read write for the root path. As it's mounted, so I'll type again mount. You can see now it's mounted as read write. That will allow me to change the password now. So I can type now passwd, or I can use echo password and slash passwd --std in root. So you can see which password I'm just providing for that. And after that, to reboot, I must firstly create a auto reliable, because the context of if I use ls-l etc passwd and I provide here z, you will see the password file context is there. So but by the way, we must add this dash tag, so to create the auto reliable file at the root path for the system to do auto reliable at boot, because if you don't do that, you won't be able to log in. And to reboot, I'll use exec usr lib systemd, and now my system will boot and I'll be able to log in with the password which I've just configured, which is password in my case. So that will be almost all for the third question. So we wait for it to complete before I can connect. As you can see here, running your my system model is auto relabeling, or here relabeling. So the relabeling is processing with on all files of the system. So I'll wait for it to complete. After that, I will be able to log in. So here it is. Relabeling could take very long time, so wait for it. So the system restart, welcome to group, and I will have the prompt to provide root user and the password. So here it is, I enter root and the password is password. I'm able to connect. That means we reset the password, and now I'll go again and log in here, pass double password. I'll go as the root user. Now we'll go for the fourth question. So set default value for the new users, set the default password validity to 90 days, and set the first UUID that is used for new user to 2000. So I'll just show the value of that property. So to get that, I must check that in the login dev files, but actually as you can see, there is many commands, so I will use grep to get rid of those comments and show only important lines. So I'll start. So this is a regular expression, and this one etc login, or I can do just like this. That will show that, and I'll add it just v to show only line which doesn't meet that pattern. So as you can see, actually the mean UID is 1000 and the password max day is 99,909. So I'll go and edit that file to change those value. I'll go on max UID mean, and I'll go at the end, replace that, and I'll also search for the pass mean days. So I'll go down and change that to 90. So right click. Now if I check those values with grep minus e UID, so is UID or pass, I'm using regular expression to show only those values, so mean and max. So just mean and max from dash. So this one is this value here is to get the value of the previous command. As I know, for the previous command I use etc login.def. So if I press enter, you will see it return, it pass login.def as the value for those command. And you can see the pass max command max day is 90 now, and if UID mean is 2000. That's fine. And so for this is set, we go on the fifth question. Create user Jade and Max and make them member of group finance as secondary group membership. Also create user Cathy and Leo and make them member of group accounting as a secondary group. Ensure that user Max as UID 1234 and cannot start an interactive shell. So I will do user, as there is group which must be added. I will start with creating those group, and after that I'll create the user. So I'll start with group add finances and group add accounting. I will add also the user add Max Jade. Secondary group will be finance and user add. For Max, he should not be able to log in with to use an interactive shell, and also the UID is 1234. Max, the group will be finance, and for the shell it will be sbin non-login, and the UID will be 1234. So even though we have this error, if we check for that user, the UID will be still be 1234. So I will show you that with passwd no get hint passwd max. So the UID is 1234. And if we check for Jade it 2000. So that's done. We create also the user Cathy and Leo. So I'll do user add Cathy. The group, the secondary group is accounting, and the same for Leo. So that's all for this fifth question. We'll go for with the sixth question. So for the sixth question is create a shared group directory, group finance and group accounting, and make sure the group meet the following requirements. So we'll start by creating those directories. As there is two subdirectory, I'll just use a make directory with p parameters and provide the list of directory in inside of curly brackets separated by comma, finances and accounting. So if I use minus ls minus ld for the previous command, as you can see, both directories are created. And so for requirement, there is member of group finance have full access to the directory. Member of group accounting have full access to the directory. New file that are created in the group directory are group own. This is the group UID, and other have not access at all. So that means we must have this chmod 770 for both directory. I will use also the same command. So if I use -l slash this one, no, I also had d here. So the group has full right, the user have full right, and the group have full right, but for the other user there is no right. And for the ownership, it will be change group. I can use change group with finance for group finance, as I can still use chmod colon finance for root no finance accounting for group accounting. Valid mode, no, it's not ch mode, is ch own accounting. I mistyped that. Yes, if I use -l the group finances and accounting can see the director is owned by accounting for the accounting and finance for the finance. That's all. And how have no access. And also we have this one. New files that are created in the group directory are grouped owned by group owner of new files that are created in directory group directory are group owned by the group owner of the parent directory. So the owner of the parent directory is also, it must be ls minus head of those directories. So the first one is accounting and the second one is finance. So for that I must set the SUID, the GUID to be slash mode G plus S for the previous command, and if I use minus L with the same value, you can see here there is S, which is for the GUID, group ID. And to test that, I will log in as Jade, su-jade, and I'll create a file in finance. So touch group finance Jade file 1, and if I use minus L, you can see the file is belong to Jade and for the group is finance. That's good. And that's all for the 6th question. We go with the 7th question. So create a 2 GB volume group with name store VG using 8 MB physical extent. In this volume group, create a 5 MB logical volume with name data and mount it persistently on directory data. So I'll start by creating the directory data and create a 2 GB volume group. So for that I must first create a partition on, so I'll check for empty block device. So we have SDB block device, so I'll use fdisk to create a partition on that. Dev SDB, I'll print, so actually it's empty, and now I'll create a new partition. So P for primary, partition number will take the first one as there is no partition, first sector, and for the size of the partition it will be 2 GB 2G. And now if I press P to print, you can see we have 2 GB partition set. As it is an LVM storage, we must set for the exam, actually we must make it a partition of type LVM. So for that I will type T, which partition I want to change the type. It's the first one, as you can see. So selected partition 1, as there is only one partition. The X code, I'll show you the list. So there is a bunch of type which you can select. So in this case I will select the LVM one, which is 8E. So I'll type 8E. Now as you can see, change type of partition from Linux to Linux LVM. So if I press P, you can see the block device is created. And one important thing for with fdisk, you must write the configuration. If you don't write, you will lose all those configuration. And to save that, you must check it the W parameters. So this one, W write table to disk and exit. So right now the partition type has been altered, calling, so we ignore that. So now if I use lsblk, now we can see we have a partition on that. And we will now create a volume group named store VG with extent of size 8 megabytes. So I'll use VG create. So you can actually check the command VG create how it's used. So in my case I use VG create. The name will be, so VG create name will be store VG and for the block device it will be dev sdb 1. So actually it's not working. VG create, so I try with this one. Okay, that works. So the command is VG create store the name of the store and the block device which you want to attach to that block device. So if I use VG display command, so you can see we have the store VG with 2 GB of size, and we also have another sub question of that is to create a path logical volume of 5 megabytes, which will be create like lv create dash l for to specify the size, which is 500 megabytes, and the name will be data on store VG. So volume group data is not found, so I'll remove this one and reverse the order of parameters. So you can actually check the man page of that command. So wait, so we'll do that. lv create man lv create. I'll go at the end what is the list of sample of creating volume, so I'll go up. In my case we'll use this one, so we'll use this one, lv create minus l with the size and n for the name, and after that we specify the VG, so it will be exit. I'll exit and use lv create minus l 500 megabytes, and the name will be data on VG store VG. So the logical volume data is created. So if I use lsblk, you can see now we have store data with 500 megabytes of type LVM. Also we must mount that on the directory /data. So I will do the same as it must be, should be persistently. I must use the fs tab file, so I'll go with ls-l. So one important thing which I like to use is to use the UUID instead of specifying the name of the block device. So before I can mount that, I must firstly format that LVM device, so this one. So for that I'll use mkfs ext4 dev mapper store vg data, so that will format that and will provide the UUID. If I use again lsblk-f, we can see this one as this UUID. Also we can also use the blkid, which show the same result. So if we go here, so we have this one, and I will must send that to the etcfs tab. So for that I'll use call back the same command and use grep to filter that, so to filter with data which will display only that line, and I will send that to the etcfs tab file. I will edit that file also and go at the end and use UUID equal to, I'll remove this, all this, and keep only that, and I'll go at the end and after that it must be mounted on the data folder. For the type is ext4 and default, 0 0. I'll check that file. We find mnt dash dash verify. So unreachable on boot requires source. So actually this one is not reachable, so I'll try to check again. LSBL key or BLK UID. So the UID for that is 2. So it's not this one. So actually there is no 2 at the beginning, so I'll go and edit that. If I tab and add 2, like right and exit, and recall back the fun verify. Now it's okay, and I will do mount minus a to mount everything. And if I use df minus h, the data folder have the data LVM mounted on that. So that means I completed the 7th question. I will go with the 8th question. Find all files that are owned by user Jet and copy them to the directory slash rooted Jet file. So first of all, I will create the directory. So I'll check for that. So ls Jet rooted Jet files. So that directory doesn't exist. I'll create that with mkd, and if I call back that command ls minus d, you can see that folder exists. And now I must search for all files which belong to the Jet user, and for that I'll use the command find. I'll search for on the entire file system. So as I'm using only for file, I will specify the type, which will be equal to f, and for the user it will be Jet. Actually, I'll just print the result of file, which will be find, and also we find this one which belongs to Jet. This one also is in the Jet home directory, and also the Jet file, the Jet file one which we created with the Jet user. So as there is some error, to filter that out, I can send the error output stream to the dev null command. So here we don't have again that error. That's okay. And if I want to copy, I can still using that command, but here I will provide exec to specify a command which I want to execute on each file. I want to copy them to the rooted file directory, and I don't want to display error stream with dev null. So this will copy those files, and if I use ls cd rooted Jet and press ls minus l, you can see there is 2 files, and I will add to show all files. So there is all these files, so that's fine. And so with that, I've completed the 8th question. I'll go with the 9th question. Schedule a task that run the command touch etc motd every day from Monday through Friday at 2 a.m. So for that, I will have to check firstly the cat etc cron tab file. So I will advise you to not add the schedule rule in this file. The better way is to use the cron tab minus e command. So I'll firstly go at the home path at the root home directory, and I'll use cron tab minus e, and now I will set that so there is 5 space separated value, and after that you can provide the command which we touch etc motd. So with this one it will work it will start performing that command on every single second, every second. So for to set it as based on those requirements at 2 a.m., I will set this one to 0 and this one to 2. And from Monday to Friday, I'll set it here, mon dash fry. That's all. And I'll press right. I'll write that. Actually, this will not perform anything. So what I would like to do is to copy that, and this one I will add it to execute every single second. So I'll do that, and from Monday to Friday, actually today we are Friday, so I'll change that to Sunday. And instead of touch, I will type echo or echo. This is, or use logger p info. This is a testing message, and press write that. Invalid cron tab, so I'll tap yes to edit it. So there is something which is not correct. I had 3 values, so must be 5. Okay, and press now. Okay, now we'll wait for it. Tail -f var log message. We'll wait for it. So I will check again that file, so it's not there. So cron tab -l, so is start every day, Monday to Sunday, and echo, and send that to the root log -l pwd. I'm in a root folder, but that file is not there. ls-l. I'll just edit that and check with something which run every single second on without specifying anything here. It will be start, and that's okay. And I use ls-l status cron d actually is running, and ruby job random daily will scale, so no problem. ls-l, if file is still not created, so cat etc, so cron tab -e. I will comment that one and check with just the second one. I'll just type restart, and I will check again ls-l, so the file is still not there. Wait, okay, now the file is there. So if I use cat log.txt, you can see the file is created. That means the cron tab is working. So I'll go and remove that line, and remove this one, and remove this one. That's okay. That means for the second 9 question is okay, and for the 10th question is add a new 10 GB virtual disk to your virtual machine. On this disk, add a stratis volume and mount it persistently. So we'll go and check if we have disponible space on all block device. So actually on this SDB we have space which are remaining. That's why I'll create a partition of 10 GB. So I'll use fdisk again, dev SDB. Actually there is only one partition, and I'll create a new one, default, and I'll be add for plus 10 GB, and I'll leave everything by default and write that and exit. And for stratis, I must install two packages. If I check for systemctl status, stratis d actually is not installed, so I will install that with dnf install -yes stratis d and stratis cli for the command. So wait for it to complete. So the installation is complete, and the question is add a new 10 GB virtual disk to a virtual machine, and did on this disk add the stratis volume and mount it. So for that we must create a pool. So it will be stratis pool create. So for the name of pool, I can add anything as the on the question is not specified. So that pool 1, and I will add that sdb2 block device. So it appears that there is no stratis d process running. That means the stratis d process is not running. We can check that with systemctl stratis status stratis d command. So it's enabled but it's not running. So I'll start now, start, and now I can call that command. Stratis failed to perform the operation that you request. It returns the following information via dbus: enable to process specified device SBP. So this is not the right one. It should be SDB2. So with that I can check stratis pool list. So we have a pool of 10 GB, and I must mount that. For that I must create a file system, stratis fs create my or fs1 on pool. So the command is, if I dash help, you must specify first the pool name and the fs. Actually the pool name is pool1, so I will call the same command. The pool, it will be pool1, and the name of the fs, it will be fs1. That's all. If I use lsblk, you can see we have information related to stratis, but we have to mount it persistently. For that will rely again on the fstab file, and for that I must specify I like to use UUID. So I'll search for the UUID. So I'll use bell kid. So for the stratis one, the block ID is this one. So pool ID, and we'll not use pool ID, we'll use so use splk -f. So the UID is this one. So I'll copy that and edit with echo UUID equal that one, and I will mount that on my MNT stratis fs. Of that directory doesn't exist, and the file type is xfs for stratis partition, and for the setting it will default, and provide also x systemd dot requires equal to stratis d dot service and 0 and send that to etc fs tab. I will edit etc fs tab. Okay, so actually this one it's just to mean that I want to mount this one after the stratis server service is started. So I will now use the find mnt command again, verify. So actually the no such file directory on boot requires source unreachable. So I will create the directory mnt stratis fs and try again with mount -a. Can't find UID that one, so I'll check again lsplk. So for the for stratis, what is the block device, the UID? So I'll check with blk id, or maybe I can use stratis fs list, which display also the UID, which is at the hand. So this one, I think is the same one which I had in the etcfs cat. etcfs tab is that one. So why it is not mounted? Mount -a. Can't find UUID cat etcfs tab UUID, that's one. So as it's not working, we'll use belk id, no, ls belk id with dev mapper. So ls -l dev mapper stratis, no, dev stratis pool fs. I will use this one instead of using the UID. So I'll copy that and go in that fs tab file. fs tab, go at the end. I will delete this one and paste the path which I copied previously. So I'll exit. It is ls, no, ls -l is dev stratis pool 1 fs. So I'll copy that and I'll do VTCFS tab, go at the end and paste that. No, it doesn't pass, so I'll delete that. Is dev stratis pool 1 fs1, and I'll try now to use mount -a, and if I use df -h, so the stratis block device is actually mounted on the stratis folder. So if I say the cd on that, so I use cd mnt stratis fs, I can create a file there with file sample or file.txt ls -l. So actually it is working. So with that, we have completed the question 10. I'll go with the question 11. Create user Bob and set this user shell so that that user can only change the password and cannot do anything. So I'll create the user. So I'll go to the root home directory and user had Bob. So set the user shell so that the user cannot only change the password and cannot do anything else. So for that, I'll use s to specify the shell, which will be equal to user bin passwd. And now with that, if I use su -l user Bob, it will request for password. So for firstly, I will have to check the set the password, which will be equal pass Bob pass, and I'll pass that to passwd std in to Bob user. So the password is set. Now I can try to log in with the Bob user dash Bob. You can see directly after I type that, I've requested to provide the current password and set the other password. So the current password is Bob pass, and the new password I will add password. So I'll add the one which is complex. So actually, as you can see, all authentication token update successful. So this one is not working, only I'm using su dash Bob. I can also use, it will be the same when I SSH with the user Bob. If I use SSH -L Bob on 192.168.56.110.0. So as you can see, the password is requested, so I add password. No, I specify the password, and actually it's not working because the user is not able to perform any action. So I will cancel that and exit. So with that, we have completed the question 11. I'll go with question 12. Install the HTTP service and ensure that it is started automatically at boot and run on port 82 using web as the document root. So that I will start with DNF clean all, and I will install now that package DNF install httpd. Okay, it's installed. I will enable that to start automatically with enable -- now httpd, and if I use systemctl status httpd, you can see it's enabled and it's actually running. But there is some requirement which is actually it's running on port 80, but the requirement said it must run on port 82. So for that I will go and edit the configuration file which is stored in the etc httpd conf http.conf, and here if I check for listen, you can see just here the port is 80, and in my case the port must be 82. I'll change that with that one. Also the document root is web instead of the default one, so I'll check for that directory web. That doesn't exist, so I have to create that ns-l. So now it's created. There is a web directory, and we must set that as the document root of the HTTP server. And for that I'll go now and edit again the configuration file. So I search for document root, and here you can see the document root is var w 3w and HTML. So I'll delete that and change it to web. Here I will do the same with web, and the last one I will do web. Right, and now I'll try now to restart this HTTP server. Boom, so there is an error, so we'll check it with this command, or we can use systemctl status httpd. So as you can see, main process failed to start Apache server and could not rely determine the server. So I'll go here, fully qualified domain name, server name directory, okay, and it started to run it on port 82 instead of 80 as previously. So What can be the main cause of this one? The main cause, the root cause is the because of SE Linux. If I do, I had a file there, so I had echo h1 sample file h1, and I'll had it in web index.html. Okay, if I use -l web, so that file is not, so I must have this one -l-web. And if I use now systemctl status httpd, now it's false. If I just use get enforce, actually we are in enforcing mode, so I will disable temporary SE Linux with set enforce to 0. And if I try now to restart if I call systemctl status httpd, it's working. And if I call curl localhost on port 82, it is working. So with that, we can say confidently that the issue is SE Linux. But for the exam, one important thing, do not disable SE Linux. So this one is to test and to confirm if SE Linux is the setting which block our service to start. So I will go and set enforce to 1. If I use get enforce, you can see we are in enforcing mode. And if I do again systemctl restart httpd, we are still getting the same error. So systemctl, so I'll use this command journalctl with those parameters, and I will remove the duplicate one. So exit for, there is a bunch of results, you can go through that and to learn why exactly that is failing. And as we know, the root cause of failing of SE Linux is of our service to start is SE Linux. I can search that with grep avc etc, no, not this, var log message. So actually there is nothing. If I use audit, so as you can see, we have different HVC alerts which have been thrown by SE Linux. Actually, we get this one to PID. So source port is 80, and so actually HTTP is trying to access the port 82, but that is blocked. And to fix that, we must configure SE Linux to run HTTPD service on port 82. And for that, we'll use AC manage command port -a-t http port t. So I will start by displaying all ports, and I'll grab with HTTP. So for HTTP, as you can see, we have only 80, 81 and other ports, but 82 is not there. So to add that, I'll use cmanage port a t http dash port underscore t, and I will add the port is TCP 82. And if I go and restart again the service, systemctl restart httpd, so now the service started. So the service is running, and is running on port 80. But if I use curl http localhost 82, I'm not getting the content of this folder web index, but I'm getting something else. So to fix that, I must check the again the avc log which are displayed. So it's not that, it's audit dot log. So this one, so deny open HTTP server want to open this file left, but the source target is httpd dash t, but it's trying to access a default context. As you can see, that's the main cause, because that by default SNX doesn't allow file or service of specific size, specific context to access service of other context. So to fix that, I will check the context of the default folder of httpd. So the actually the context is httpd underscore sys underscore content underscore t. So I will set the same context on the web directory. So for that, I'll use manage f context. You can still searching for check the man page, which will be man is managed f context. So you'll get whole command or how to use that if you go at the end of that command, and you can also read it. But for in my case, I can just copy this one and change that. So I'll get and paste that. So it will be same manage f context dash a dash t http sys content t and the same value. So okay, and if I try now to for that to be applied, I must use restore conf v recursive with on the web directory. So now relabeling web from context default to http context sys content t, and the same for the index file. Now if I use curl localhost on port 82, now we can get the right content. And if I check the service status httpd, it's running on port 82. So that means for the 12th question it's resolved. Go on the next question, question 13. So as the user Smith create a container that run on an HTTP server, ensure that it mounts the host directory http root and the directory ensure that it mount the host directory http root on the directory var www htms. So here there is an error. It should be the http root on the user Smith home directory. So for that, I will add first by adding that user Smith, and I will switch to that. I'll set the password to equal password. So you are not obliged to set that, but I will set in my case equal password pipe passwd sdd in Smith. And one important thing for to manage some part of container or with podman, you must not be logging with through SSH. You must be logging on the console directly on the server. So for that, I will use the virtual console again. So use that and use u-smith to log in as Smith user. And now I'll create that directory. So mkd, not at the root path, but in this folder directly, root. And actually there is not the podman is not installed. So if I use podman, that command is not present. So I'll install the package, which will be in dnf group list. So I must install the group which have all content for the to manage content container, which is container management. So I use dnf group install container management. So it's installed. We'll wait for it to complete. So now if I try to use podman, it's present, and I'll connect again with Smith user, and now I'll try to create the container following the requirement which is specified. So first thing first, I have to be able to download container from repository. That means my server must be able to reach internet. So that's it's working. So I'll try now to create a container podman dash dash no run. I will start the container in detach mode, and so the container server, ensure that it mount the host directory. So for that we must use volume home smith and http root on var www.html. You must also provide that one so you can change the context of that folder. And one thing which must be had there is the name of the container, which will be, in my case it will be web server. And for the container, the image which I want to use is httpd. So I'll check for httpd. There is different registry which are already configured, so I'll select this one as I don't have access on Red Hat registry. So I'll wait for it to download the container image. So it's not working, so I'll cancel that and retype again and select that one. So now it's download the container, so I'll wait for it to complete and I'll spin it out the download process so we can go right to the install process. So the container I've already have the installation, the download is completed for the image and the container is created. If I use podman ps, you can see C group manage set system D to raise an error. So you can enable linker with login possible as root, and so actually we must enable the linker as we are running service. So for that I will exit and do any login ctl enable linker, which will allow a user to start service even when we are not logging with that user. So if on user Smith, if I use login ctl show user Smith, you can see now the linker is enabled, and I'll use su dash Smith, and I'll use podman ps. So we have that container, and if I use curl localhost, so actually the wait, I will check for docker, no, podman inspect web server, and I'll pipe it to the less. So we'll check for the bind port. So I'll go down, network. So actually the port on the host is not bound on any port. So with that we won't be able to test that container from this computer right out. But the main question here is to configure the container so that such that it is automatically set on system boot. So if we have we launch podman ps, we have the container which is running. The remaining thing is to create a service file which will start that container automatically, and for that we can use podman systemd no generate command systemd, and I use files to create a file instead of printing the service on the console. So I'll remove that, and I'll add new for the web server. So you see it's display on the screen. So to create that in the file, and that file must be stored in the mkdir -p .config /systemd/user folder. So it will be not R is P to create with subfolder, and I'll call again the same command, but this time I'll provide --files and also the name, which should be web server. And as you can see, we have this service file, container web server service. I must move that into the config file. So container in .config systemd user, and that I'll use systemctl --user daemon reload. Failed to connect, but so I use systemctl daemon reload. Is not working, but I'll check for that systemctl status of container server, my web server service, and I'll also add user because I'm testing this on the user space. So there is nothing. Connect to bus not medium fine. So I use systemctl list or --user list units it's not working. So systemctl is displayed, but I'll exit and use systemctl list units, and I'll do grep pipe grep web server. There is nothing. Or I'll go in the config systemd user folder, and from there I can use systemctl -- user status. If this one is not fine, I'll use systemctl daemon reload. Is not working. It's not, it failed to connect to bus. So I'll try to exit and reboot first the computer and see if it's working. So I'll wait for it to mount. So this one is a little bit challenging because it's not working as expected. So root no is root password, and I'll exit and do Smith and password. So I'm connected by podman PS. So actually, see me try podman PS -a. So there is nothing. So I'll try to use cd in the config folder systemd user and cut the container file. So detach v name web server. So that's okay. If I use the same command again, and I'll try to run that again, podman, not that. So this one, httpd podman system migrate. Okay, now I have to run this one, ps, and I'll remove that with podman rm web server. Podman kill web server because it's running, and podman ps there is nothing, and podman all. Okay, and now I can remove web server. We say cannot remove container as it is stop running, or post container cannot be removed without for container set improper. So I'll try to add false. So if I use podman ps or there is nothing, ps there is nothing. Okay, and now if I try to run that command again, this one, it's working, podman ps, so it is running. And if I try now to search for systemctl -- user status web container web service. So okay, the service is there but it's not started. I will enable it with enable, and I will stop the podman kill web server container which is running web server. Okay, stop, and I will remove that podman web server. If I use podman ps-a, is not there, and now I'll use systemctl status. It's enabled not started, but I'll use start. And if I use podman ps, we have the web server which is spinned by the systemctl service. And if I stop it like this, stop, so it stopped. And if I use podman ps again, there is nothing. Even if I use podman ps-a, there is still nothing, but I can start it again with podman systemctl user start. With that, so podman ps, so we have the web server. And if I exit and root and reboot the server, root password, and now I will do reboot now. And I want to confirm that that container start on boot, and even if the user is not connected, I can be able to see those servers, that service running. So wait for it to log to boot. Okay, I'll minimize that. Now I can use my terminal again, not Bob with student. That is not the right one, it's this one. Pass wd password and sudo su dash password. And now I can use top, and here, or I can use ps box. If we search here, I'll make that a little bit bigger, and we can search for the container. What it is, so seems it's not there. But if I use curl local, or no, there is no bind. So but if I use su dash smith and use podman ps, so the container is, that means that was started on when the server booted, and it's about 1 minute, but we connected just right now, so that means it's working. And after that, this following question is question 15. So create a directory with name user, and should contain the subdirectory ldap user1 to ldap10. Export this directory by using NFS. So I'll start by creating the directory user ldap user 1 to 10 -p. If I use ls-l user, so there are all those directory, and I have to export that with NFS. I will add that to etc export user, and I want to export that is not specified. I'll use it locally 172.0.0.1 and read write sync no root squash. right? And the actually there is not NFS on this. So if I use system status, NFS server is not there, so I have to install that with systemctl. No system dnf install NFS utils. Yes. And if I check again with systemctl status NFS server, it is disabled and not running, so I'll use systemctl enable dash dash now to start it, or just after I enable it, NFS server. And if I call again, status is enabled and running. And I'll check now with show mount dash e. So as you can see, the user home directory is mounted. And that's all for the question 15. So it's mounted, it's shared. And the last question, which is 16, so create user LDAP user 1 to LDAP user 10 and set the home directory to home user 1 LDAP to. So for that I'll use a for loop user in sequence of 1 to 10 do. So I'll start with to check if it's correct. Done. So that is not correct, so there's no that. Okay, now I will remove this and go now and create user. So user add LDAP user $1, no user, this will be the value held by this one on each loop. And as the home directory will be hosted by the NFS server, so I don't want to create the home directory, I provide hem. And for the home directory of each user will be in home user LDAP, no LDAP user with user, and done. So if I use tail etc pass wd, you can see we have user 1 to till user 10, and the home for each is home user. But actually, if I try to log in with one user like LDAP user 1, you can see the home cannot change directory, home directory, no such folder or directory. So this directory does not exist. So that directory should be exported by the NFS server, and it should be mounted by AutoFS. So for that I must install the AutoFS. So I'll check if it exists. It's present, so accept systemctl status AutoFS is not present, so I'll install it with NFS install AutoFS. Yes. And after that I will check the status of that. So status is disabled and not running, so systemctl with enabled AutoFS dash dash now. So enable instead of enabled. Okay, and if I check again, status is running. And to be able to mount it each user home directory, we must configure AutoFS. So for that I will go in the auto.master file and go at the end. So I must mount on home user, and the map file will be etc auto.home, and I will edit that file. Actually is not exist, so I'll create that home, and here I want to mount anything, and for the FS type it will be NFS 4. And what I want to mount local directory, so 001 colon from user, which is exported with ampersand, which will be replaced by the name of the user we want to access, and I'll press that. And now if I use su-ldap user1 is not mounted, so I'll restart system AutoFS systemctl, restart AutoFS, and now if I try again ldap user1, and if I use df-h, you can see, so I'll expand that, the user, so I'll delete that and press again in where it is mounted. So I do mount to auto mount. As you can see at the end there is home user ldap1 which is mounted. So this one is mounted there, so I'll try with exit ls-l or df-h. I'll try again with another user ldap user 10 df-h, and if I try with pwd, it is in the home folder, and that means AutoFS is working correctly, except if I use mount home user ldap user1 is not there, or sudo dash su dash plus wd df-h. So actually for each user the folder will be mounted automatically as the user connected, su dash ldap user 4. So if I df-h, so actually where it is mounted, if I use mount, so those folders are there, so all of them are mounted. And if I try again with another user ldap user or su dash ldap user 5 or 6, call mount, so it's mounted automatically whenever I try to log in with that user. So that was the last question. That means I've completed all the question. So you have the list of all questions, so you can take them and tweak it as it plays to you, to practice more, to gain more knowledge on this practice of the exam. So that was what I want to share with you in this video. So if you would like to get more content like this one, you can subscribe or leave comment in the comment section so I can get more feedback from you. So see you soon.